Hi, Spots and Cheap Pops, you're on the air.
Hi, Spots and Cheap Pops presents your Moment in the Valley with me. It's me, SSV, Silicon Steve Valli. And ladies and gentlemen, I pop on here every couple weeks and we start talking about something that not necessarily is happening on-screen stuff. And what I was going to do today was going to focus on Cody Rhodes' journey outside of WWE, where he really crystallized the American Nightmare, what that version of himself was. And we're going to go into that, but we got to say something. I'm going to be as quickly and as brief as possible because there's been so many opinions thrown about AEW and the Young Bucks releasing the footage of what seemed to me, and this is actually a very true line that they said, like a high school brawl. You know, you ever fought in high school, like right in the middle of the day, and you pushed a kid, another kid pushed you, maybe one of us gets a punch in, and they won the fight because it was broken up in 10 seconds. And then the one guy who got the one punch in won the fight. That's similar to what we saw right here. So it's such a polarizing thing, and it doesn't need to be, folks. Here's the simple reality. It is not a mutually exclusive fact, meaning if one thing is true, the other one can't be. These are not two mutually exclusive ideas that CM Punk is an egotistical, narcissistic cancer in a locker room when he is disgruntled. I would go so far in this instance, it's like he looked like a bully. I don't think if that's Will Hobbs, he does that. No. I don't think if it's anybody bigger than him, he would have done that. Not anybody, but Jack Perry is small, probably doesn't know how to really fight in his life, was, a famous actor's son. So Punk could be an egotistical cancer in the locker room. He could be a bully. And yes, he did everything he possibly could to get fired from AEW. So if it wasn't going to be Jack Perry, it was going to be something else. He came back and started poking, I call it the rabid ferret that is the AEW brass, particularly the elite, particularly the Young Bucks. So that could be true, folks. And you know what? In my opinion, it is true. So for all of those on Facebook and other members of social media that are saying that I'm a CM Punk homer or I'm a CM Punk fanboy, I have buried this guy on our show for the better part of 2 years since he had his little temper tantrum stuffing some delicious pastries in his mouth at the All Out press conference. I have been critical of him. In fact, Lottie Dottie and I have almost gotten into actual arguments where we actually pissed at each other because I bashed the guy so much, and all he was doing was burying the elite. So that is true in many respects. You can have that opinion, and you can also think that the way Tony Khan and the Young Bucks have done business since this happened has been an absolute abhorrent disgrace. And quite frankly, such an indictable offense that EVP should be nowhere near the Young Bucks title. Nowhere near it. They thought this was going to be a good idea. The worst part about this, they could have achieved the same exact thing in terms of fighting with FTR. They could achieve the same exact thing without showing that stupid coverage. Was CM Punk 100% clear and crystal and accurate on what he said? No. He made it sound like he was being the professional. He made it sound like he even said this, I thought I was doing the responsible thing. No, you didn't. You're so full of shit. Okay? He didn't think he was doing the responsible thing. He begged Tony to let him go. Bye, let me go. Let me go. No, we're going to do AEW Collision, and you're going to run it, and you're going to be a big part of that show. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. Let me go. Let me go. Pleading with Tony Khan to let him go back because he went back and kissed Triple H's ring back in April last year. If anyone doesn't remember, I'm telling you, that's exactly what he did. WWE Raw was in Chicago. CM Punk went back there to make sure he had an in back. He didn't say anything that would get him sued or WWE sued, but he wanted to make sure things were smoothed out with certain people so he can hustle back to WWE the second he gets fired, which was going to be his goal when he came back. Period. So if it wasn't going to be Jack Perry, it was going to be something else. Mark my words. He saw Survivor Series was in Chicago. He's a smart guy. And there's a couple other things that was bullshit, which we already talked about on a former podcast, on an old podcast I did with Lottie Dottie earlier in the week. But now that we've seen this footage, I get what they tried to do. I do get it. And you know what? Jack Perry never sold this many t-shirts in his whole fucking life, and quite frankly, will probably never do again. That's a business win. They popped a rating. They got over 800,000 in a few weeks. If that's your goalpost, and if that's what that did, it was not worth it, and it backfired. And I saw so many people saying only people in WWE's bubble said it would backfire. No. Dave Meltzer saying it backfired. Wrestle Talk, who are the most unbiased cats on the planet, nicest guys in the world too. They even said it was horrible. Ollie Davis said, so that's what we need to understand. Just because CM Punk was a dick, what he said was kind of accurate. He made himself look a lot better and a lot more mature in the situation than he was. No, he was being a scumbag and he wanted out of his contract. Period. And when CM Punk is disgruntled, there is nobody worse to work with or work for by every metric that a fair mind would have. It's not like CM Punk never had a problem with the company before, right? But now let's focus on the Bucks. I know what they were trying to do. They're trying to interweave reality with a work with FTR. I get it. And the second time I watched it, once I realized exactly what they were doing, I was like, they could have achieved this without showing that stupid footage. Because whether it was right or wrong, perception is reality. And you had CM Punk's name being chanted throughout that episode. So Matthew and Nick Buck, or Jackson at this point in time, Massey, really, huh? Those guys and Tony Khan should not be anywhere near a leadership role at this point in time. Did they clear this stuff with Edge? Did they clear it with Bryan Danielson? Did they clear it with Moxley? Did they clear it with Jim Ross? Did they clear it with Shivani? Did they go to anybody who has a brain in their fucking head? Did they ask anybody outside of their petty little bullshit circle of friends? Did these two jerk-offs, did these two guys, the Bucks, did they not even clear it with anybody and think this was still a good idea? What buffoon thought this was a good idea in today's day and age on social media? It works short term. I'm glad it worked short term. But if you don't hit 800,000 the next several weeks, it was a boner move. And I'm predicting if you don't change and you don't turn the page quickly, they're going to be under 700,000 soon. Because you cannot put stuff like that on your television show. Bucks, if you have a point to make, be a normal fucking human being and go talk to whoever you want to talk to and then spill your side of the story the same way as Punk. And then you're not wasting somebody's time who is, quite frankly, I'm fucking tired of talking about CM Punk and AEW. Can we all just fucking move on now? And I know why we won't. CM Punk is polarizing. He gets the most reaction of any current professional wrestler. Still, hell, he hasn't been in a company in 8 months, and they're still chanting his name. And this is one that you brought on yourself. Meltzer, who I don't always agree with, Meltzer was right there. You brought it on yourself. You brought CM Punk trending on during your show, trending because you did what you did. If you wanted to get out the point that CM Punk is a jerk-off, well, folks, he is a jerk-off. And he wanted out for obvious reasons. And Jack Perry was the easiest target Punk can do, and it worked because guess what? Punk was fired, and then he was able to debut at the Survivor Series, which he teased when he went his first time back doing an MMA thing. Oh, I got 2 months to hang out with you guys. 2 months, almost exactly to the day of the Survivor Series. Almost to the day. Michael Cole dropping hint after hint after hint, particularly involving the Seth Rollins angle with Nakamura about CM Punk. So many. And this dude had the balls to go on radio or on this podcast and tell you that he had no contact with WWE until a couple days before the event. That is such bullshit. His eyes were not only brown, they started smelling like dirty asshole. That's how much it was bullshit. So for anyone that goes out and says CM Punk's 100% honest, no, he's not. There were a lot of lies and half-truths. I thought I was being responsible. No, you didn't. You went there to fight him right in front of the boss, in all likelihood, so you could get your ass fired. Speaking of the boss, do you know how unbearably horrible it is that he said he feared for his life? I mean, we were already all laughing at it. We really were, but this is even worse. So AEW needs to not bring up CM Punk the rest of their lives. Let him go. Let him and Hunter, let them take their cheap little shots, and you take cheap little shots in social media like a normal fucking person. Stop using my time for your petty bullshit. Everybody involved in this controversy, everyone who had a major part, has been terrible as human beings or terrible as people, terrible as professionals. Everybody, Punk, Khan, and the Bucks, all disasters. But who's winning right now? The guy with the big contract on the bigger platform who has his name being chanted on your television show, or you guys, where every unbiased wrestling journalist, if they are any, every one of them is saying this was a terrible backfire and an embarrassing moment for your company. Tony, go get Scott D'Amore and have him be your right-hand man. He can, and your mentor. He can show you how to fucking run a wrestling company. Because Christ's sake, you certainly don't know how to. And you got to stop letting Nick and Matt Jackson try to pop themselves in their little jerk-off niche crowd that loves them so much. Stop worrying about that and try to start helping your company, because you're not going to be able to pay Okada, Ospreay, Mercedes Moné, Jericho, Moxley, and whoever else you might think about getting that's going to be a free agent in a couple of years or in a couple of months, including MJF, even though you're going to have to, I'm sure you're already paying him a lot of money. You got to get yourself a TV deal, bruv. A TV deal, a substantial one. Well, guess what? Your little gatekeepers who you're catering your show to, seemingly, it's going to be them, all 200,000 of them watching your show on fucking YouTube or some third-rate cable channel. So you got to turn it around, Tony, and if you need help, get help. Don't go with Bully Ray, though. He's fucking sucks. All right, enough negativity, folks. I just wanted to put it out there because it's always like, oh, Punk's either Punk who's great or it's either the Bucks who's great. No, they all suck. They all fucking sucked in this situation. They were all terrible. But Punk is the only one who got exactly what he wanted. He is, and I didn't say this at the time, but Vladi, it was right. Punk is playing chess and Tony and the Bucks are playing checkers. They're playing like they run a promotion out of Reseda. All right, ladies and gentlemen, now on to the more positive part of the show, which is going to involve all elite wrestling in its genesis, but also the journey that Cody Rhodes took. And I wanted to kind of do this because, you know what, I'm going to mark out here real quick, folks. Let me get a little hit of my Mother Nature's Finest, which we're not going to put on YouTube, but if you're listening, I am taking a hit of some medicine. So here's the deal with Cody Rhodes and why I'm going to mark out for him so much. Cody Rhodes was in the midst of the Stardust run, right? Hated what he was doing, did everything he could to get that character over to his credit. He did a great job with absolute bullshit. I go back and I realize who Cody Rhodes is, more importantly, and see how he acted and totally became that character. It was a terrible idea and a terrible character, but Cody did everything he could to get it over. And he didn't want to do it anymore, and his contract was coming up, and WWE had a nice package for him. Hey, stay. And there's no doubt Cody would continue to be a mid-carder and maybe eventually get that one moment, and he maybe go the way of a Dolph Ziggler. I don't know. I don't know what would have happened if Cody stayed. But I know what wouldn't have happened if Cody stayed. All Elite Wrestling. The Bullet Club having monster success after they lost AJ Styles and Adam Cole. Cody came in and made everything all better in those areas. And a guy by the name of Kevin Owens, when Cody was leaving, Kevin Owens said, hey, these are my boys, the Young Bucks, and a couple other guys. They'll help you get situated on the independents. Because Cody grew up. He literally started as a professional wrestler. As soon as he was done with college and wanted to do the professional wrestling thing, Cody learned from WWE, and he was an OVW underneath WWE control and underneath WWE guidance. So he was growing up learning how to be a superstar. He never learned how to be a professional wrestler. He was a superstar. And this was a time where Vince McMahon had a full-blown control over what was going on. And Vince McMahon's ideas of what's good. And let's be real, Vince McMahon, for probably over a decade, was so out of touch and so terrible at putting on a professional wrestling television show, he made Tony Khan look brilliant. When we're comparing Tony Khan with Vince McMahon, Tony Khan could do no wrong. Now he's getting compared to Triple H and everyone's calling him a clown. So Cody knew there was only so much that could be done, and he didn't want to sit around dealing with Vince's bullshit, and he wanted a place to grow and be himself and bring everything that he thought he could and really understand who the American Nightmare Cody Rhodes was. Starts coming in as a heel right away. He joins Bullet Club. He still had a bomber jacket, so he wasn't donning the shoes yet. He still had the black hair, but it wasn't long. He traded in the bomber jacket for three-piece suits with outstanding jewelry and really playing the part of a champion already. He was a heel, and he was such a great heel in Ring of Honor, the fans started to love him because he was such a scumbag. And he started performing on Being the Elite, which is the Elite's YouTube channel, and it hasn't been good since he left, by the way. It has not been good since he left that show. Really good. At least maybe 2021, maybe leading up to the Hangman stuff, it was good because they were entrenched in that storyline. And there were a lot of details that went into that storyline that they played out on Being the Elite. But really since 2019, 2020, Cody wasn't on Being the Elite. But Cody made Being the Elite and the Bullet Club cooler than it has ever been on American soil. You saw Bullet Club shirts all over the place again. And they already were popping up. But Cody Rhodes was essentially the leader of Ring of Honor, of the Bullet Club when he was in Ring of Honor. He and the Bucks became very, very dear friends with another guy by the name of Marty Scurll, who was canceled for very good reasons. And, of course, Hangman Adam Page. And when they were in New Japan, mostly they interacted with Kenny Omega. And Bullet Club became bigger than ever. And this is after losing Finn Balor and AJ Styles. And Kenny Omega, when he took over Bullet Club, was still just a mid-carder. He barely was out of the junior division. But that Bullet Club was the best Bullet Club probably ever. I don't think Kenny is the best leader ever. I think that's Jay White. But the best era of Bullet Club was the Kenny Omega era. And then Kenny and Cody Rhodes, they started engaging in a rivalry of who's going to be the leader of Bullet Club. They had one match in Ring of Honor where the Bucks seemingly were going to kick Cody. Cody got out of the way, hit Kenny. Kenny was the babyface in that moment. And Kenny was just a month and a half before winning the New Japan Pro Wrestling World Heavyweight Championship from Kazuchika Okada, which to me is still the best match I've ever seen. But with the double super kick, Cody winds up beating Kenny in their first battle at Ring of Honor. And then, of course, the rivalry culminated with Kenny and Cody for the championship in I think the first American show in New Japan ever had, where Kenny put his heavyweight championship recently won on the line against Cody Rhodes. And Cody loses, and at the end of that, the original OG Bullet Club members, Tama Tonga and company, they turned on Kenny and the Bucks and the Elite and Hangman. Cody came out, looked like he was going to side with them. He wound up siding with the Elite, and that essentially was the end of the Bullet Club as we know it until Jay White took over as the leader of the Bullet Club a couple months later. But in the midst of that time, that was 2018, in the midst of that time, while indie professional wrestling was as hot as it's ever been, with Cody Rhodes, one of the top names, if not the top draw in independent wrestling, he signed an exclusive contract with Ring of Honor for a hot second, and his contract was due to be up in 2018 on January 1st, 2019. As were the Bucks, as were Hangman. In the midst of that, Cody did these great things on Being the Elite, hilarious content. I encourage everyone to go back. If you really love Cody Rhodes, you'll see a good part of his journey just watching those Being the Elites. And he was easily the most entertaining guy on there. He actually, if you didn't know this, he actually did a invasion angle where he took the Young Bucks, Bullet Club members, and his wife, and with a ton of fans, and actually went down to a WWE Raw show and had this amazing, hilarious moment where he actually had this great speech. And it wound up being the same exact speech from Bill Pullman from Independence Day as the president, when he says, "Today is our real Independence Day," or whatever the hell he said. And it was just funny because it had nothing to do with wrestling. And so if you saw it, you know it was funny. And Cody, with the Bucks and everybody involved, built this beautiful energy and love for professional wrestling that, because of an old, perverted, horrible booker named Vince McMahon, was desperately, desperately needed. And these young men were taking the bull by the horns in 2018. And at some point late 2017, early 2018, someone said something to Uncle Dave Schmeltzer, and Dave Schmeltzer said, no company can put 10,000 seats in no American company, and I'm paraphrasing, no company can put 10,000 seats. No company could put 10,000. No company could draw 10,000 people in the United States this day and age. And Cody Rhodes saw that. Cody Rhodes, not the Young Bucks, not Tony Khan. Cody Rhodes said, "Dave, I'll take that bet." And then the genesis of what the first All In was going to be. Young Bucks and Cody were the three primary guys, and they said, All In, Chicago, 2018. It sold out in a half hour. They had already surpassed any expectations that were there. They certainly blew Dave Meltzer's expectations out of the water. And we know what happened at All In. Cody not only wins the National Wrestling Alliance World Championship, it was the biggest show outside of WWE on American soil since WCW was in charge, since WCW was on television. Almost 2 decades. It was an accomplishment. It was on pay-per-view. It was one of my favorite pay-per-views I've ever saw because you felt the revolution in the air. Even if there were a bunch of people dressed up as cock druids. I digress. Google cock druid and Joey Ryan. That could lead you down a really weird path. Maybe don't go down that wormhole. Anyway, it was something that was palpable. And there was a very special man who was at All In, and his name was Tony Khan. And the rest, as they say, is history. But the audacity for Cody to say, I'm going to leave here. I'm going to leave my home that's been my home for almost a decade. I'm going to leave because I got to find myself. And Cody left a superstar, and God damn it, he came back a pro wrestler. He changed the game of independent wrestling. He helped the Young Bucks, and he couldn't have done it without the Young Bucks. He couldn't have done it without Kenny Omega and Hangman and Bullet Club. He couldn't have done any of it. But once he understood who he was, which was around 2017, you felt that he was going to be a star. And then We go to 2019. We know what happens. AEW is launched. Cody Rhodes is one of the first signees named EVP with the Young Bucks. Later on, followed by Kenny. Kenny still had a New Japan contract till the end of the month in January that year, so Kenny couldn't sign right away. And so Cody Rhodes became the most outspoken and really the face of AEW when this first started. And who can forget his first match who can forget his match with Dustin Rhodes at Double or Nothing? Considered one of the greatest matches of Cody's career. Many consider it his greatest match. A spot that Cody and Dustin wanted at WrestleMania for the longest time. I still don't think he's going to get it, but they gave these two an open canvas to do what you want, and Cody helped change the world, and he became instantly the biggest star in AEW. But Cody wound up challenging for the AEW World Championship at the AEW World Championship at Full Gear. And we know what happened. MJF turned on him, threw in the towel, and then turned on him, punched him right in the balls. After apologizing and crying, he wound up throwing in the towel when Cody was in the Walls of Jericho or the Lion Tamer, whatever the hell it's called. And MJF acted like he was distressed and he wound up throwing the towel. And the problem with him losing this match is that prior to it, he said if he loses, he's never going to challenge for the World Heavyweight Championship again. One of the most epic mistakes that he probably ever made in his entire career. But he turned chicken salad into chicken shit. And by the way, Cody made that call. It wasn't anybody else. Cody certainly had enough stroke within his character to say what he wanted to do. But what Cody does then is he goes after the TNT Championship, and he winds up making it a very prominent championship. Great matches with Brody Lee. Great matches with Sammy Guevara, Darby Allin, putting guys over. But sometime around mid-2020, which was before the TNT Championship, he started getting booed a little bit. The Anthony Ogogo, we can never forget the Anthony Ogogo angle with the Big Show fucking up the weigh-in. It was a disaster. Nobody cared. I think Cody was trying to put over an up-and-coming young talent. It did not work out. Then he did a gender reveal, and then a lot of the fans really started turning on Cody, booing him every step of the way. And he wasn't booked strong. A lot of his things seemed like they weren't making sense. Between 2020 and 2021, by the time Malachi Black shows up and kicked him in the face, the crowd really was turning on Cody. Getting booed, palpably booed. Getting the John Cena reaction, as we said. And he still couldn't fight for the world title. So the only way we can get in the world title scene is if he turned heel. And everybody wanted him to turn heel. Every AEW fan wanted him to turn heel. He has to turn heel. And he refused to turn heel. He wouldn't do it. And there's a reason he didn't do it. And he finally, well, he was working without a contract early January 2022. And he was the current TNT champion. And he was going to have a ladder match with Sammy Guevara to find out who the true TNT champion is. They did that interim shit. It was really weird. And I think his contract status was the reason, because he did wrestle without a contract. And it started getting to the point where would the unthinkable happen? Because Cody Rhodes was so synonymous with All Elite Wrestling. He was the face of the company until right around 2021, where Tony Khan started being the face of the company. Tony Khan was bringing in CM Punk. He was bringing in Adam Cole. He was bringing in Bryan Danielson. How'd those guys work out, by the way? So far. And it almost seemed like Cody wasn't as appreciated as maybe he thought he should have been. Certainly, I didn't think he was appreciated, particularly by the gatekeeper AEW fans who hated Cody, who wanted him to turn heel or they were going to boo the fuck out of him. And so right before he's having this match with Sammy Guevara, the ladder match, which would prove to be his final match, you started creeping in the idea, is it possible Cody would leave and go to WWE? And I said about 6 or 7 months earlier, I was like, if he ever goes to WWE, he could be a monster babyface there. His shtick would get over with the WWE universe as a babyface, at least for a little while. A lot better than what's happening now, where he's getting booed every 2 seconds. And when you're a babyface and you're getting booed as much as Cody, it wears on you. And he didn't really have any more goals to achieve in AEW unless he turned heel. So for the first time, it started creeping in our heads that Cody might be out and he might go back to WWE. And I thought that, and then he cut a promo, which would have been his last promo ever in AEW, and it's one of my favorite promos of Cody's career. And in the midst of him putting over literally everybody that he could possibly put over, everyone he could possibly put over, including throwing a WWE joke in there when Gunther he made a reference to Gunther McGillicuddy or whatever his name is, and it was a really fun line after they changed Walter to Gunther on the main roster. But he put almost everybody he possibly could over, including Brody Lee's son, -1. He put over Brody King. He put over Sammy Guevara. He put over a great deal of his journey, and it was impassioned, and he was doing the very best he could. Meanwhile, half of the AEW crowd is chanting, "Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up." And in the midst of that promo, Cody is telling you, look, when I was the lowest point of my career and I had no idea what I was doing and I was trying to find myself, you guys cheered for me. That's when he was a heel. You guys cheered for me when no one else would, and I appreciate you. And that's why I'm never turning heel. And he was trying to get that out. He did it so eloquently and so beauty, but so many AEW fans didn't give a crap, and they're fuck him. Because maybe they didn't understand how close he was to leaving. But that AEW, that chant made me ashamed to love AEW. It really did. Because I knew everything that Cody did, which we already prefaced, everything that Cody did was to get AEW just to be a thriving company. And we can never forget that without Cody, none of that happens. So, as he explains to the crowd while he's not going to turn heel, and he says, I'm going to cut this promo because I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to do it any other time. And he said his might be goodbye in an impassioned, beautiful way. And again, that crowd chanting, "Shut the fuck up," showing no respect for what he did, what he accomplished, and what he did for them. Their weekly TV show doesn't happen without him. So, Tony just spent millions and millions of dollars on 3 stars. I'm sure he perceived as bigger stars than Cody Rhodes. And whatever the personal issue was with Tony and Cody, maybe it was because, Tony, I'm keeping you if you turn heel. Otherwise, I'm not. I don't know what it was, and I'm not going to speculate too much. They both have been very tight-lipped about it. It wasn't for more money, I would assume, but he might have wanted to be paid just as much as the 3 that just came in, and maybe that was it. But it's all speculation. Cody says it had nothing to do with money. And he said it was personal. It was either because he didn't want to turn heel and Tony was making him, or it was a personal thing where he knew what CM Punk, Bryan Danielson, and Adam Cole were getting, and it was more than him, and he wanted more. And it was personal to him, even though it was about money. So I don't know, but that would all be speculation. But what we do know, he didn't sign with AEW. And he started one of the most incredible journeys in recent WWE history. Maybe the most incredible. Shows up and debuts at WrestleMania 38. Not to the surprise, but I can tell you, seeing him grow the American Nightmare brand with the American flag over the skull and crossbones, and hearing that song by Downstate Kingdom, showing that pop up at WrestleMania was surreal. It had become so synonymous with the revolution that independent wrestling was taking, the revolution that AEW was taking. And then to hear that song and see that logo pop up to face Seth Rollins, and hearing the reaction he got, I said, they are going to have that. I said it right then and there. Again, this guy is going to be the face of the company. No doubt. Because he took everything he learned as a superstar, and then he took everything he learned to become one of the best independent professional wrestlers ever, winning Ring of Honor championship, NWA championship, the catalyst for All Elite Wrestling. And when he came back a superstar wrestler of anything most of us ever thought. Because I'll be honest with you, when he first started out, I didn't think anything of him. I thought it was another kid getting an opportunity because of his last name that doesn't deserve it. So I was kind of hard on him, and I've done that with a lot of guys. I've doing it with Dominic Mysterio now. I've done it with Hook. I did it with Randy Orton. I don't love the second generation guy who doesn't know how to work, put on television over guys that deserve it a lot. And so that was my problem with Cody. That wasn't a Cody problem. It was a Vince McMahon problem. So for me to say this and talk to you about all the great things that he's done, and by the way, the courage and the guts it took to leave WWE and create another professional wrestling company. At the end of the day, Cody Rhodes is going to be one of the most historic wrestlers in the history of the business, especially if this run is long and vibrant in this new era. So I'm giving Cody his flowers now, because if he didn't have the guts to say, I'm going to do it on my own, I'm going to become from undesirable to undeniable, which is one of his biggest quotes, and do the work. He did everything he needed to do against all odds. And again, AEW fans, there is no AEW without Cody. And we know what happened when he got back to WWE. He comes back already an instant top babyface in the company. Already. He has an embattled rivalry with Seth Rollins, which is culminating with him working with a torn pectoral muscle, which is one of the grossest injuries I've ever seen in a wrestling match, when he came out and worked with it. And he wound up putting on one of the best matches of the year in that Hell in a Cell with Seth Rollins, who, by the way, Cody doesn't reach to where he's at without Seth Rollins either, doing everything he's done. So I want to give Seth Rollins some flowers there too. And then we know he had to go away. He came back, wins the Royal Rumble, and everyone wanted and thought he was going to beat Roman in WrestleMania 39. We know that wasn't the case, and a lot of us were pissed off. I know I was like, if they don't make the payoff when Roman loses worth it, this was a mistake. They made it worth it, baby. And one of the greatest WrestleMania moments of all time. Definitely a top 5 for me. I'll see where I'm at in a year from now. But Cody Rhodes is the face of the company, a guy who left saying, I got to figure out what I want to do, and I got to find my creative spark, and I got to figure out the ins and the outs of the business that maybe WWE shielded me on. I'm going to have the guts to do it. No guaranteed money. To get injured at any moment and you're screwed. But Cody did it. And he wound up not just changing his trajectory of his career, he wound up changing the entire world of professional wrestling. He's the American Nightmare, Cody Rhodes, and I congratulate him and I salute him for everything he has done. And that's all I got to say about Cody Rhodes. So thank you, Cody Rhodes. Thank you, WWE, for letting that moment happen. Thank you, everyone in AEW. Because if it wasn't for AEW, WWE wouldn't have gotten their shit together quite as fast. Maybe they would do a bigger job. Maybe they would be doing a better job of trying to cover up Vince McMahon's bullshit. I don't know. But Cody Rhodes needs to be understood as one of the most influential and inspiring professional wrestlers of the modern era already. And we're not even a week into his first championship run. Man, I need a cigarette. I don't even smoke. Love you, Cody. Great job, roller coaster. And hey, AEW, you got such a great roster. Let them be your stars, not CM Punk. All right, folks. Thank you for listening. This quick moment in the Valley brought to you by High Spots and Cheap Pops. We're going to be back live with another podcast next week. Vadi Dottie and I are going to be getting together over the weekend, and we'll be discussing the direction of WWE, and I'm sure Vladdy Dottie will have his own thoughts about AEW showing the CM Punk footage as well. If you're watching us in some capacity on YouTube, please hit the subscribe button. We have a goal of getting to 1,000 subscribers, and we'd like you to be part of it. Also, if you're following us on Spotify, Apple TV, anywhere you get your podcast. We want to thank you. Please follow us on social media, Facebook, High Spots and Cheap Pops. We have a fan page as well, High Spots and Cheap Pops Pro Wrestling fan page. Join in the conversation. I'm very respectful to everybody unless they are disrespectful with me, and I'm working on even being disrespectful back in that situation. So for that, I want to thank all of you and everyone. We've had a massive growth the last year in comparison to our first year, and I want to thank everybody who's been a part of it. We cannot do it without you, and I want to learn more about you. We've really built up some really good friendships and relationships talking about the craziest and best time in professional wrestling history as we are right now. So, one more sign off, because I couldn't just keep these too long. For Moment in the Valley, brought to you by High Spots and Cheap Pops. This is Silicon Steve Valli, and here, end of the lesson.